Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Ascension concluding yesterday in the Americas region. M80 losing again for the second year in a row in the Grand Finals. Absolutely devastating loss for this organisation and for the players. But what does this mean for Rostermania? Big questions therefore being raised as to what about Zander, giving his tenure, his history with some of the individuals over on that Sentinels organisation. Is he a man to look at now that he hasn't qualified with M80 all the way through to the VCT? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Loads of new subs over the last few days. Thank you so much indeed. Let's dive straight into things. Firstly, Durka in the replies here to Fracture. Maybe he wants Fracture back, we'll see. And as he says, they said they're looking at ways to update their map rotation schedule for competitive. And he's like, oh, they added Split, they got rid of Split again, they added it back again. That's kind of what they're doing right now. But Riot says, like, they haven't forgot about Fracture. It still exists. Don't worry, guys. It's coming back at some point. We'll see if that ever actually is the case. This is the Pacific Ascension tournament ongoing. Of course, they've got this massive double L in bracket happening. This was a series that just concluded. Sinprisa Gaming are absolutely cooking right now. They are potentially looking like the strongest team here in this region, and at least for this Ascension tournament so far. 13-3, 13-9 over Boom Esports. Full Sense, of course, also looking very good. They might be your two favourites right now. We'll see over the next couple of days how this goes. It's the 29th of September that everything is going to get concluded over there. But Rare Atom, they've done it again, made the grand finals of Ascension and lost again. And we're going to see a similar story here in the Americas, but this was a rough one. Congratulations to XLG as well, right? Because these guys have, I think, pretty sure they've kept their roster now for a good few months and, you know, worked well together and they made it through. Of course, interesting couple of teams because it's in the Chinese region, right? We've got a couple of Russian players, of course, Taiwanese players, although, you know, China will say differently about that. And then Martin, of course, who finally got over the line here, but this wasn't even close, right? So difficult stuff for Rare Atom, but it was 13-5, 13-5, 13-7. Dominant from XLG, and they are your champions of the Chinese Ascension side. So congratulations to them, and their coach obviously was talking about it as well. Just a great result. Wishing the best for those guys once they get up into the league. The difficulty is, of course, that once you're in the league, all of a sudden that team might now decide to make changes because players are available, and it all gets kind of complicated in terms of Rostermania, especially because there are often talented players that don't win Ascension, as we are seeing in the Americas. So as Zander says, grand final of Ascension today in this exact position last year. Time to earn at what we have worked so hard for. They made the grand finals. 2-game esports were their opponents. 2-game esports lost 2 games, but they won 3 and they get over the line. And this is actually a great story for this organisation and for this team. Tough for M80, we'll get onto them in a second. But again, when it matters, M80, obviously they lost like 3-1 last year in the grand finals to the Guard. This year they made the grand finals, being the favourites again to win Ascension. They made it all the way. They lost the Sunset, they won their own pick. Most of these maps weren't even close, by the way. 13-7, 13-8, then to M80 on Abyss. So this looked like after a great second side of Abyss that M80 were finally going to do it, finally going to get over the line, but they lost their map pick Haven 13-7, losing both pistols was a bit of a dagger. And then the Bind, the big decider, wasn't even close. Mentally, after going down 6-0, it just feel like at the start of this first half, they kind of collapsed. They tried to bring it back on the second half, but of course, it wasn't to be. And 2-game esports over the line. Great story, by the way, for the Brazilian scene in general, right? Because there's been some concern, I think, and for understandable reasons, that the Brazilian kind of FPS scene that has been so strong for many a year was effectively dying a death in VALORANT. Partly because many of the players and the teams involved were, you know, based up in North America, right? So the league is based out of Los Angeles, and therefore many of the organizations up there are now having to consider whether actually they, you know, don't have full Brazilian rosters, whether they have more of an international team, and what that means for the pipeline through Tier 2 is a bit of a question mark as well. But clearly, there's still a lot of Brazilian talent out there. Just from South America in general, really, still coming through. There's other players as well that didn't win this tournament that proved they are very solid in addition, but 2-game esports got over the line. So another Brazilian team in franchising is really cool to see, and as Sensei, welcome to the big show. We already like them more than G2, but, you know, of course, M80 deeply frustrated and devastated with another result like this. They grind all year to become, to win Ascension. They get to one best of 5 in the finals. They lost it last year. They lost it again this year. Nets won it last year on the guard. He was back on M80 this year, lost it this year. And, Nguyen is kind of talking about how impressive it was for 2YM to get this job done. The title renews our hopes regarding the Brazilian Tier 2 scene. So, wishing the best for all involved. But it was devastating to read the words of the M80 boys after the results. This from Koala Noob, of course. Nismo has been with this guy for so long now. And, just didn't work out. And as he says, love all you guys. Sorry we couldn't pull it off, the best teammates. And this is the debate now as to what exactly M80 are going to do, because they've invested a lot into this team and into Valorant in general over the last couple of years, paying serious salaries M80 to try and win Ascension. They've made the finals 2 years in a row. Both years it's not worked out. So the question is whether M80 now are going to decide, all right, we've put in this money for the last couple of years, and look, maybe they shouldn't be putting in the money that they did. But that was their plan, M80, that was their intention. Put in some of the big bucks, become the best team in Ascension, win Ascension, qualify for the main league, and then, of course, go from there. But it's not worked out on 2 occasions, and effectively, they've just lit money on fire for the last couple of years. So whether they continue to do that or not is a big question. The theory seems to be that M80 might well just call it a day now in Valorant. Maybe just entirely, who knows. But we'll see what M80 decide to do. They might commit to these guys for another year. Maybe they do. But based on the way that these guys are talking, it seems like M80, it seems like the general feeling in the team is that who knows what happens next. The team might disband. Whether those guys get opportunities, right? Obviously, BCJ was talking about it as well, who had obviously a difficult season. Certainly that applies to this roster as well. And as Zander says, basically it's been a pleasure to run it back and try again. To fail 2 years in a row is horrible. Gonna take a hot minute to reset from this one, he says. And as Marv says in the replies, you're him, brother, menace in the server for sure. And the question therefore becomes, where may Zander go next, if anywhere? And where might some of these other guys on this team go next, if anywhere? Are M80 really gonna, stick it out and grind it out for another 12 months to try and win Ascension next year? Maybe they can, maybe they would. But it's just been a difficult ride, absolutely, right? So, there's been a big question on whether even in the VCT, even Slasher mentions this, what if evil geniuses just disappeared one day and put M80 in there instead? Because there will come a time where they review the franchise or the partnership agreements with Riot and with the Valorant League, and they decide to make changes to which organizations are partners. M80 have tried, right? They've committed resources, they've tried to make it work, and obviously it hasn't worked out in the way that they wanted it to in the end, but maybe they're going to stick it out and try again for one more season. The big debate really comes around to, especially on the Zander side, because there's been a theory going around the last few days. Zander could or potentially should be linked to the Sentinels lineup, has history with a couple of those guys, and as Ryan says, obviously this is a joke, but, Sentinels reached verbal agreement with Zander midway through the final map of Ascension Americas. So there's been a theory that maybe Zander is on the radar to, join up with these guys and continue his career in that way. And I feel like if any of the players on that roster, he's got to be, kind of confident that there is going to be a positive future there as well, especially because Zekken re-signed his deal the other day. Rumour has it that's going to take him until the end of 2025, according to the contract database. So it's only like a 1-year extension for Zekken. I'm pretty sure they've done this with a number of their players recently anyway, and it makes sense, I think, all things considered. Especially because if you are Sentinels and you want a certain player to stay, you can effectively, usually speaking, get them to stay, because are you gonna leave Sentinels as an organization? No, unless the team's doing badly and someone else gives you a mega bag offer, I imagine. So I think it makes sense for Sentinels just to give Zekken a 1-year extension, but they still need a couple of players. Gen.G, I think it was his birthday yesterday, maybe it's happy birthday to him, maybe today, not sure, but he tweeted about it, I'm pretty sure anyway. So Gen.G, Zell says Zekken looking for 2. We've heard many players linked there over the last 3 weeks. We've talked about Narrate, who is almost certainly not going to stay on Carmine Corp according to rumours. So he's definitely in the conversation. Even Bang came up as a potential discussion point. Scuba as well as potentially being considered as well. We even wondered about, what about Aspas? Could you get him off? Of course, Leviathan, is that impossible? And now we're talking about maybe Zander, maybe other options that they could think about. So you know, the theory was that if Zander and M80 were to have won Ascension, then that team would have likely stuck it out, or very similar to what that team was. Probably maybe one or two players get poached or they make one change, but pretty unlikely. Having lost, however, everything is potentially on the table, and especially if you are M80, you might be thinking, well, we put all this money in, can we get a buyout for one or two of these guys? Is it possible that Sentinels could come along and pay a bit of money to get Zander off the M80 team to come to Sentinels? Maybe. Would another organisation come in instead? It's interesting, right? But I think it's been just a speculation in the community that Zander to Sentinels could be an option. None of the kind of like reporters or anything have actually talked about this. Apart from, to be fair, it did appear on VCT spreadsheets, latest one here, so this isn't Rocket Bullets, this is another one. But yeah, Zander has now appeared on the Sentinels one as a potential rumour alongside Narrate. Jorgma, of course, is the other player that I didn't mention among others. And even this like whole Durka to NRG thing might be getting a bit more steam as well. But very much interested your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.